Welcome back to another episode of the Million Dollar Body Podcast. Here today, I have the pleasure of chatting with Casey Weade from Howard Bailey and also from the podcast Retire with Purpose. Casey just put out his book, Job Optional. So we're going to be chatting a little bit today about talking about how to retire without having to worry all about that at the end of our careers. Casey, so good to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here, Nate. It's always a pleasure to spend time together. We had a great time together at a retreat not that long ago. I'm hoping to see you again very soon at the next retreat. And you're a pleasure to speak to on our podcast. So this will be fun.
Thanks, man. That was a lot of fun. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to write the book Job Optional?
Yeah, I've grown up around the financial services industry, around the financial services business, and I've always been a pretty driven individual, a highly goal-oriented individual. I was one of those kids in elementary school that used to write down my goals and stick them on my mirror and look at them every single morning when I woke up. And I was always all about, making that goal list, checking it off, and I was very driven. Ultimately, I found out by money and the collection of things. I think most of us are driven that way without even thinking about it. And there becomes a point in life, and I reached a point in my life in my 20s where I pulled out that goal sheet, I looked at it, and I found I'd literally checked off every single box on that goal sheet all the way up to financial freedom. And at that point, I went, well, now what? What's next? What's next? Now that you have enough, why continue to work? Why would I wake up the next morning and go put in, 12 hours at the office? There's no reason to do that. And in that moment, I realized that all of the goals, that was the moment I realized all of my goals had always been about the collection of money and things. They're void of those most meaningful things in life. And they're unique for all of us. But for me, digging back in my history, I found, really as a kid and along the way, it was all about family. It was about family. It was about, at that point in my life, it was my kids, my wife, and I discovered I was neglecting my family. I was neglecting my wife, a lot like I felt like my dad did when I was a little kid. I said, I'm never going to work as long and as hard as he did. I'm always going to be present there for my kids. And I was failing, I felt, in that realm. And I wasn't doing a lot of things to give back to the community, to give back, to serve others. And so I really started thinking about, well, what's next? What's next for me in that moment? And I really thought about quitting. I said, well, I'll just retire and I'll sit back. I'll focus on my spirituality. I'll focus on the community. I'll focus on my family. And I think this is what a lot of people do as they transition to retirement. They just go, oh, well, I've got enough money. I'll just kick back and relax and I won't do anything the rest of my life, or I'll focus on something else. But you find, and for myself, I've got a lot of God-given gifts, just like you do, Nate. We've all got these God-given gifts, God-given talents, and we need to use those blessings to give back at that stage in our life. And giving back doesn't just mean you're giving your money away to charity. You can be most effective by utilizing those gifts you have. For me, it was finances. It was getting money. It was making money. It was investing. It was financial planning. It was goal setting. And I was really good at that. And I uncovered a framework that I used in my own financial life without really even thinking about it. I had structured this framework that had delivered this financial freedom. And with that, I said, I can take this framework. We can create this as a proprietary process. I can write about it in the book, Job Optional. I can share with people how I went through this process of finding my purpose, and other clients that have had this same experience that we've worked with. And I've been amazed by just how many different individuals are finding value in the book, because I wrote the book for people that are pre-retirement, 50 to 65, they're transitioning to retirement. And I wanted them to have something that got real value. Most books out there, they're glorified business cards. I wanted something that somebody opened up that got real value and they could implement it into their financial life, into their personal life. And that's what was created out of this. And I've got people that are Gen X, Gen Y, millennials. I would say almost more in that demographic actually have been reaching out via email, writing reviews and sending me text messages. People I haven't seen since middle school, and they've read the book, and I'm going, I didn't even write it for you. What'd you find in value? And they said it was all the stories about the families that we had worked with, the mistakes that they had made throughout their life, and what had ultimately led to their success, and the obstacles they're overcoming later in life so that they could begin planning for those things today. And so it's been an awesome process, and it's one that I am extremely proud of.
That's Terrific. And I really love the book. The cover looks great. If you're not watching this on video, Casey just held it up. It's a very sleek looking book. So you can pick that up on Amazon. You can also find it. I love seeing your pictures of you in airports, finding the books. Like which stores in the majority of airports are stocking it?
Yeah, it's in all the Hudsons,
Okay.
in all of the major airports across the country, and that it just stays there for a number of months until it kind of gets pulled off. So it's been really
Cool.
successful in the airports. I've been actually really surprised. I thought people just walked through the airports, they looked at those, and they ordered them on Amazon. But we've actually had some pretty good sales across the airports, and that's been a lot of fun going in and signing those.
That's great. To be totally honest with you, like when I was reading it, I did not think at all like, oh, this is for later in life when I'm closer to retirement. I was taking those stories and being like, okay, how does this apply to me? Because obviously we put ourselves in the driver's seat for most of this stuff. So even if you're not at that point where you're getting close to retirement, you should definitely check this book out. One of the things I really loved about it, Casey, is that unlike a lot of investments, retirement, financial planning type of books, you actually talk a lot about life purpose, and you connect all these like end goals back to the life purpose. And you mentioned a little bit about that kind of when you had already hit your goals in your 20s, you had checked all those boxes, and it caused you to kind of take a step back and re-examine what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because I think at the end of the day, like I've heard some stats, and I'm sure numbers change, but after you hit about $75,000 in income, the money no longer brings you your greatest satisfaction and joy. It's other aspects. So can you talk a little bit about why that was such a prominent piece of the book, and what, like, how we can start thinking about that, even like, even just before we hit our 50s, 60s, get closer to retirement?
Well, I think I can go back to a story that I'll tie in here, but it goes back to a consultant, a very smart man that I once worked with, someone that was a centimillionaire that had, owned dozens of businesses throughout his lifetime, extremely successful, and still continuing to work. And we're sitting on our back porch, and he said, "Casey, what's your number?" And I, you know, I'd never really nailed down a number. I had a number in my head, but I'd never really thought about exactly what is that number. I had just always been about the collection, right? We're always like, well, I just need to save as much as I possibly can every single year. I need to get the biggest return that I can possibly get every single year so that someday I have enough. But we never really figure out what that number really is. And he said, once you get to that number, figure out what that number is. It's $1 million, $5 million, 10, 100 million, whatever it is for you. You get to that number, you'll be amazed at what changes in your life. Money doesn't change people. It makes you more of what you already are. And during those periods of time, as I found, okay, now I'm striving for this number. I get to that point, I hit this number, and now I can really fulfill for me what was purpose. That meant I'm going to give back to our team members. I'm going to give back to our clients. I'm going to give back to the community. Every single year we've lowered, or not every single year, but every couple of years we've lowered our clients' fees as we've been able to hit, our goals. And I've been able to create my own financial stability. I'm not in this for the money anymore. So I can give back to the clients. I can give back to the employees. We started with no benefits. Now we have, a benefit package. It would be rivaled by some of the best, biggest Fortune 500 companies out there. We're volunteering. We're supporting junior golf in the state of Indiana. We're doing things that we wouldn't be able to do if I didn't have the financial confidence to know that I could do that. So I believe that we truly need to use money to deliver meaning and purpose into our lives and also others. I've had families that I've worked with are at the other end of the spectrum. They're 60 years old. I had a gentleman that worked in his business. He started it in his dad's barn. I ended up being there for him to sell this to a private equity firm when he was about 60 years old for $100 million. And he loved the business, but it wasn't something he was truly passionate about. He was passionate about impacting the global community in a big way, largely from an energy and software and efficiency perspective. And he had this idea that he wanted to go out and he wanted to take a big risk with, but he was never able to take that risk because he was so involved in the business, and the business was all about making money. Once he had enough, we could structure his financial life like we did mine, and then take a chunk of that. He could go off and really try to change the world. And that's what he's doing today. And he said, my purpose is to be and create. And that's what he's doing every day. He's being and he's creating, but he wouldn't be able to do that to the level of focus that he has today if he was still thinking about money. If he was still thinking about, well, do I have enough? How much do I need to make this year? How much do I need to save? What kind of return do I need to get? What about the stock market? If we can eliminate a lot of those concerns, we can focus on what's most important in life, and it's not money.
It sounds to me like you're saying that, and I'm going to tie this back to fitness because that's kind of where I'm at. But it sounds like fitness as something that I consider to be like money, which is like a force multiplier. It takes what you already are, like you
Yeah,
said, and just makes you more of
absolutely.
it. It makes it more evident. And then going back to what you said previously about giving back, and it's not, you said it's not just about giving to charities, because you're now taking your time, your talents, and your treasure, if we're going to keep it in alliteration, and you're applying those to not only the community you're working in, but also nationally. Like you're putting out a podcast, right? Which is free, and it has so much value that you're delivering on a daily basis. You wrote a book where you took your proprietary system and put it into this book and actually get you're selling that on Amazon where people don't have to come work with you to see these strategies and to be able to get value from you there. So I just love how you're not just talking about it. You're actually doing it at a very high level and impacting a lot of people more than you could if you hadn't made the money, if you hadn't chosen to
Right.
pursue these ways of giving back.
I think we
That's
also
really
have
cool.
it a little mixed up. Sometimes we believe that, we don't want to give away all of our secrets or people won't do business with us. Now they'll have everything they need. You put out so much value in your articles and in your podcast. Everything that you're doing has value in it. It's not just a glorified business card. And I don't know that we all realize that. And we definitely don't recognize it, many times until we have enough and we go, okay, now I can start putting it out there. But part of this transition for me is making our brand intent something that our whole team recognizes. And this is something that's just been a big part of our brand. And it is that we can't serve everyone, but we can help everyone. And so when we set out to do any type of marketing activity, no matter what it is, I want to make sure there's real value in there. I mean, for the book that was put out, you could take what's in the book and do it on your own. You don't need us in order to implement those things and get those things done in your financial life. But you'd be amazed how many people still want to work with us because of the value they received in the book or the value they've received in the podcast. They want to team up with someone that's putting out real value in their lives because they know we're going to continue to do that for the rest of our life.
And I think that when you have something like that, people go, okay, like I can trust this guy. He's got a history of results. He's obviously has high integrity. He knows what he's talking about. And I don't want to have to go figure this out. Like, yes, I can take all this information and apply it, but why not just hire you to do that work because I know you, I like you, and I trust you, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's
What do
perfect.
you want to spend your time focusing on? Especially once you have enough money. There's far too many people that spend, well, now I've got enough. Now I need to manage it the rest of my life. Like, is that where your highest value is that you can put out in this world? I don't manage my own money. I don't manage my own money. I don't manage my own portfolio. I'm not my own financial planner. I've got those people that are helping me because I know I can make a bigger impact somewhere else.
100%. And I don't write my own workouts either because sometimes we get like blinders on and sometimes we can't see that full picture, right? So sometimes one of the questions I had for you is how can we avoid falling into the traps where we are not seeing the full picture of our own financial history and needs and the way that we can get towards retirement and retire with enough money to be able to live out our life purpose? What are some of the things that you see a lot of the time people not taking into account or avoiding?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, we could go so many different ways with the ways that people go wrong, right? In their financial lives. And I think that's what you're asking, where do people, largely go
thank you for
wrong
clarifying.
or where can we, where are some things that, people can do when they're younger to really enjoy the trip or enjoy the journey? I mean, there's a lot of things we overlook. And there's something that, I talk about all the time that was, hammered into me by my dad. If we just listen, and I think it is value. Go out there, read the Dave Ramsey books. Go out there, learn from Susie Orman. Do your own research, get your own financial education. That's the most important thing that you can do. But then there's a lot of things that people don't tell you because they're all, largely, they're vested in their own financial benefit, right? They want you to put money in retirement accounts so they can manage those things. And when I was the first time I ever maxed out my Roth IRA, I don't know, I was in my early 20s, and I was probably I might have been 20 years old or something. And, I called my dad and said, "Hey, you're going to be really proud of me. I maxed out my Roth IRA last year." And he said, "Okay, what do you have left?" And I'm going, not much, right? I mean, I put everything that I possibly could in the Roth IRA. I thought that I was supposed to max out my Roth IRA. I thought that was like baby step number one. But it's emergency funding, and then it's moving on. But I thought that was what we were supposed to do. That's what we hear from all the figureheads. We're supposed to max out our retirement accounts. And he said, real wealth, it's not created in the stock market. Because at the time, I also wanted to brag about the stocks that I had just bought, right? And we all hear from the guy at the gym. And a guy at the gym the other day was just telling me about what a great stock pick that he had, and then he sold it. And I'm going,
Bought
okay,
Tesla.
so what impact did that make in your life? And that was the question Dad asked me. So you had a big trade, you made 20%. What impact is that going to make in your life? And I'm like,
Mm.
well, it was good, but what was it? $500 probably in one stock that I just made $100 on. It's not going to make an impact in my life. He said, real wealth is not created in the stock market. It's not created by those people that are sitting around trading their portfolios or investing in traditional retirement accounts or IRAs or 401ks. Real wealth is created in business and real estate. And that's how Dad created his wealth, largely in real estate, which was a business of sorts. We started when I was a little kid, we lived in an apartment, then he got a little house, and then we fixed that up. We got a little nicer house. We ended up owning about a 60-unit apartment complex and managing that. And that was how he created a lot of his wealth. And so that's been a focus of mine. And when I'm talking to young people, I'm going, okay, it's good to max that. It's good to max those things out, but don't put everything there. Maybe let's split some of those funds, because there's going to be an opportunity that comes along that's a real opportunity. It's not just a stock market opportunity where you make 5 to 7% a year. We're going to invest in a real estate or a business venture, and that's going to produce maybe 20-30% a year, right? That's where real wealth is made. And that's where financial stability is created as well. When you're in your younger years, you don't have the penalties and restrictions that you're going to find on retirement accounts when you own assets such as rental properties that are creating passive income. And that's the income that's going to give you the ability to retire early, or just find the confidence to know you can follow your dreams in another area of your life.
That's
So
great.
I don't know if I answered the question, but that was just one of the things that I think is most often, just kind of gets twisted when we start reading articles on finance and where we should get started. I think that's one of the things that's been very beneficial in my own financial life, is to have not everything tied up in retirement accounts, but there's many other ways.
Sure. So it sounds like you're saying when you're first starting off, it's not even though we think, okay, investments equals stock market equals mutual funds, we don't need to be putting all of our spare pennies in there and waiting till we're 65 to enjoy them.
Yeah.
We want to be able to utilize those to not only create a great future for ourselves, but also be able to enjoy the present moment and live in our life's purpose. Like you were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, being able to really invest in your community, in your family, in the things that are really important to you.
Mhm.
So how
Well,
can we do that? Like, how can
one of the
we have the investments and enjoy it along the way?
Well, one of the areas for me where I get a lot of enjoyment, as you know, is with my family. And I like going on little vacations. Yeah, I'm somebody that enjoys working. I enjoy the routine. I love what I do. So I'm not somebody that needs to go move away for 6 months. I'm going to
Yeah,
continue
those
to work.
people
I
are
want to
really
be
weird.
here.
So
I want to be here. I don't want to retire, but I do want to leave for, maybe 3 to 5 days a month and go spend some quality time with family without the stress. And this is something my dad did when I was a little kid, and that's again where I got it. He picked up uh, a foreclosed home that was, I believe, bank owned on a lake that was about 45 minutes from town. And we would go there every weekend. And I think he picked it up. It was for like $1,000, a couple $1,000. He ended up getting this lake cottage, and we'd go there every single weekend. We'd go and spend time there. And then he ended up selling that for over $2 million. Probably 25 years later, right? And now he's got additional dollars into it over that period of time, but it was something we really got to enjoy. And for us, we really enjoy going to Michigan. We love the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We love skiing. We love snowboarding. We love just being cooped up with a fireplace burning and looking out at the snow coming down and sitting out in the hot tub. So for us, we did that. We went out and we bought a rental property, and that rental property is something that's building equity. It's kicking out rental income, and we get to enjoy it periodically. Other than that, it's a vacation rental, and it creates a pretty nice return. And my dad is doing the same thing as retirement. He enjoys the relationships that he's able to create through his vacation rentals, managing those things on his own. A big part that the number one thing my dad's good at is creating a new friend. He loves everyone. And that outlet of having vacation rentals and managing those is creating additional income and giving the ability for him to live in different parts of the world during his retirement. He loves to travel, loves to meet new people, and he loves the extra income.
I like that you gave us two examples, basically, of two different people with two different life purposes using their investments strategically to live more into those purposes. You with your family having that rental house where you can go to escape, have those 3 to 5 days vacations with the family, get some sense of quality time. Your dad getting to travel a little bit more, meet new people. That's terrific. That's a great way to have your cake and eat it too, right?
There is a risk in that too, right? And this is
Sure.
one that I want to make sure is not overlooked. I don't want somebody that go out that maybe has an unstable job and a little extra cash and says, I'm going to go out and buy myself a second home and get a second mortgage, and the rent's going to cover everything. I'll be good. Because if you can't make that payment, if you lose your job, you need to make sure you're still going to be okay. And that is something that I just want to also put out there, because I put this in an article on a while back. I believe it was in Market Watch, on just some unusual strategies for saving for retirement. And this is one that I strongly believe in, but you don't want to overextend yourself either.
That makes sense. Yeah. So thank you for the caveat there. So for someone else maybe who doesn't necessarily have a ton of extra income or have the ability to go out and be like, I can take on a second mortgage, it's no problem. How would you recommend that they get started? Someone who's in their 30s, 40s, not necessarily close to retirement, but also just not starting out in their career. Where's a place that they can go to either get additional information, or where would you recommend that they put their attention?
I think budgeting is the number one thing that most young people are overlooking. I've always been a hardcore budgeter. And when I was a kid, I did the envelope system. And the envelope system is...
Dave Ramsey?
Gosh, we can't overlook the value in the envelope system. And that was what I used when I was a kid. As I established goals, I had, I always had a job, and I had money every single week that would go into one envelope for a big goal. That might be, a wakeboard back then, right? Or a new set of golf clubs, but I had envelopes for different things. And as that progressed, you can still, people are kind of against the envelope system today, I find, because they go, wow, but I can get points with my credit card or my debit card. And I say, oh, okay, but quite often people are overspending with their credit cards. But what we did is we transitioned that into a new age envelope system. When I was a kid, we would take instead of envelopes, we had about 12 different bank accounts with our bank, and they don't charge you anything for. A lot of banks won't charge you anything for additional bank accounts, and each one of those had a different label. This is our grocery account, and we get $50 a week for groceries. And I had a debit card, and it would not let me charge or swipe that debit card if there wasn't anything in the account. So I couldn't have any overdraft fees either. And so I had everything get direct deposited to one account, then automatically dispersed to all those other accounts. And the bankers thought I was crazy because I had, all these different accounts with small balances in them, but it was the way that we were able to budget and really control our spending. And my wife and I would sit down once a month and review our overall budget. We had line items for everything. We'd see our over under, and we would track those things, and we would review it on a regular basis. And I know it seems so basic to create a budget, but it's overlooked. And that is what I think when I look around at the other financial advisors that are in this office, when I would explain to them, our envelope system, and then moving into the bank and having the envelope system within our banking system, and sitting down with my wife regularly talking about her budget, none of them were doing it. right? These are guys that are really good at managing money, and they're not budgeting. They don't even know what they're spending month to month. I sit down with successful individuals, on a regular basis that come in, and the vast majority of people that are stepping into retirement, they don't know what they're spending. They have no, they'll go, we don't have any debt. We probably spend about 2 or 3,000 a month. So, well, last year your take home pay was about $100,000 and you didn't save anything extra in the bank. So it sounds to me like you're spending more like 8,000 a month. They go, oh gosh, where's it going? Right. So now they have to dig back in, figure out where the money's going. If you don't know where the money's going, you're never going to make it.
Yeah, it sounds like what gets measured in this case gets managed better, right?
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I think I was the first person to originally say that.
Could have been.
Could be. Yeah. But I think you're 100% right. Like, so again, tying this back to fitness, if you don't know exactly what you're eating, if you're just like, man, yeah, I had a kind of a great day today, I feel like I was under my calories, chances are you're not. You're definitely over. People, I think in the fitness industry at least, statistically underreport their food consumption by 50%. So I wonder what that is across the board to financials.
Yeah, it's such a wild thing that you don't track. And it's so true. You don't track it. You're going to get yourself in trouble. And yeah, I was actually just speaking on practice management to about 40 advisors from across the country here recently that are all pretty successful guys. I mean, they've been pretty successful in their financial life. They're making a good income and they've got a decent business. And I said, so how many of you, I said, by a show of hands, how many of you know your ROI on all your marketing sources? And in that room, I had about 20% of the hands went up. If you don't know that, then that's the first action item you have when you go back home. And that just goes on back. So I'm just saying that it's even successful business owners that aren't tracking the things that are ultimately going to allow them to have financial freedom someday.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that it'd be so prevalent. Because you see this, like, I feel like for a lot of people, okay, yeah, I don't really know, I'm not advertising, so I don't necessarily need to know my ROI. But if you're a business owner and you don't know your numbers, like, what is your business doing behind the scenes while you're not watching it?
It's amazing to me. It's just amazing to me that people can run a business and not know their numbers. But I would say the vast majority of business owners are not actually tracking the numbers because they have a specialty, right? They're a physician and they're really good at doing surgeries, right? They're not really good at managing their finances. And that's something that we need to learn and really put some time and energy into. So if you're in your 30s and 40s, if you don't have a budget, you don't know where to start, then just start educating yourself, start picking up books, start reading and learning. The thing that I'll also add is, I think far too many young individuals in the 30s or 40s, they start making some money. They go out and hire a financial advisor. They say, oh, I need a financial advisor now because I don't know what I'm doing. Why don't you go out and figure out what you're doing before you go hire a financial advisor? Because most people don't need a financial advisor in their 20s, 30s, 40s. As you're in those accumulation stages, you don't need a financial advisor. That your number one goal should be to accumulate assets, minimize your costs along the way. And if you work with an advisor, they're not going to beat the market. They're probably going to perform worse than you're actually going to perform if you just put everything and dollar cost average into the S&P 500 or a handful of diversified index funds. You're going to do better than that financial advisor. You're going to pay maybe 1.5% to. That you should be doing it on your own. I have friends that come to me all the time and say they're 30s and they're going, hey, Casey, can you manage this for me? I say, why? Why do you need me to manage it for you? Your goal is growth. When you need a financial advisor is a transition point where it becomes no longer about accumulating assets, but it becomes about protecting those things. Advisors should get paid to protect your assets against major liabilities, major threats that might be present today or in the future once you have the money. But you don't need to be walking into your local broker's office, paying them 5% commission to throw you in some mutual fund that's not going to perform.
That was awesome. I feel like, am I wrong in saying that could be a little bit of like financial system hearsay, just a little bit, telling people they don't need financial advisors to their 20s, 30s, and 40s?
Well, and this is also a transition too, right? And you're seeing a transition period now, where we've got robo advisors, popping up all over online. If you just want, if your goal is accumulation and you're just trying to get the biggest return you can possibly get, you can hop online. If you don't want to pick the index funds yourself, a robo advisor can do it for a fraction of a percent, and you don't have any commissions going out of your portfolio, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah, and again, it's all about education. If you don't know what you're doing, figure it out. You don't need some advisor to sit down with you and figure it out. You'd probably pick up 5 books and have enough knowledge to get yourself, pretty far into the future until you start having major threats, which as a business owner could be taxes. It could be liabilities. It could be, property and casualty insurance gaps. It could be disability, long-term care, market crashes because you need the income. And those are the things that you pay an advisor to protect you from. And that doesn't happen when you're 25 typically.
I mean, that you're blowing my mind right now, because I feel like typically, like you assume financial advisor, if I'm investing at all, like I need to go find out, like got to go to the source. But I love what you said about your goal in those years is not protection necessarily, it's accumulation.
Yeah.
And
But
I
the
think
same
that,
thing could be applied to the legal world, right? I mean, if you're
or
just
fitness.
setting up a business, you're setting up an LLC. Yeah, you're setting up your will and power of attorney because you just had a kid. Yeah, do you need to go to an attorney and have them take a boilerplate document and you just spent a few $1,000s, a couple $1,000s with them when you could have hopped online and picked it up for 100, $200? And that's what I did when we started the business. I educated myself. What do I need? And then I went out and got it at pennies on the dollar. You don't need those high level professionals until you hit certain stages in life.
Yeah, that's just great to know, and I think that's a very, very actionable tip that if people are looking for kind of the next step to take in their financial journey, it's go out and educate yourself first. Pick up job optional. Start listening to Retire with Purpose. Like put like there are a lot of great resources out there that are just a few mouse clicks away. And if you don't care enough to educate yourself on your own finances, then how can you expect to keep them and actually have that rolling forward and hitting your number like we talked about earlier?
This is a huge shift in the financial world where, and back in the 90s or the 80s, you had to have a financial advisor, right? I mean, you had to have somebody because you didn't have any access to the mutual funds, couldn't go buy fractional shares online. You didn't even have the ability to Google these things, right? And now you have the ability to, at your fingertips, educate yourself in a plethora of different ways that your parents probably didn't have the opportunity to do.
Yeah. Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that's a very, really powerful piece. I'm gonna go back and definitely replay that for a lot of my family and friends. So Casey, I want to get to kind of like the heart of the interview right now. And so if you guys aren't watching this on YouTube, which you can check it out, Casey's probably my most well-dressed friend. You always look good. That's why I'm wearing a tie to this interview, of course. I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. Same, right?
I like wearing a tie. This is the first time I've ever actually seen you in a tie. But my grandfather, and I don't have to wear a tie every day, but I almost wear a tie every single day of the week, other than on the weekends. Yeah,
You look
even if I'm
amazing.
working, I'll work at home and I wake up and I put a suit and tie on in the morning and I'll get started. I've had friends stop by and say, "I thought you were working from home today." Yeah, I am. Yeah, but it's just my grandpa had put on a suit and tie every single morning into his 90s, so I guess it's just in my blood.
It's just a consummate professional, Casey. I mean, you look great, but I guess what everyone is really wondering is, how much do you bench?
Well, my latest bench was 365,
Ooh,
and I haven't been able to put that one any higher. And I think I'm going to give up on that. I always wanted to get to the 400 mark, but I think I'm okay at 365. It's putting a little too much stress in these old bones.
it definitely takes it out of you, but that's an impressive number. So
Well, thank you.
yeah, awesome job, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some wisdom with us. How can people connect with you, Casey? Where can they go to find you?
Well, we've got so many different resources out there. I would just direct you to retirewithpurpose.com. That's just a great landing page for us where we've got all of our resources in one place. So you can go watch old episodes of the TV show, the radio show. You can click through the podcast. You can get a free chapter to my book, Job Optional. You can click on through if you want to learn more about our firm, Howard Bailey Financial. You can click on through to Howard Bailey's website, learn all about us there. But all those great resources are going to be right there there at retirewithpurpose.com. One of my favorites is Weekend Reading for Retirees, and that is just a collection of 4 articles I offer commentary on. I send out every Friday. It's kind of like the old 5 Bullet Fridays, right? So every single Friday you get an email, handpicked articles, commentary from myself to keep you up to date on some of the latest financial trends.
That's awesome. So I'll put that in the show notes, make sure that you have access to those things. And if you want more than a chapter of Job Optional, which I think you should, it's available on Amazon and also all Hudson bookstores in the airport. So make sure you grab that, check it out, educate yourself on this process, because at the end of the day, if you don't know your numbers, if you don't know your money, if you don't know where it's going, you're not going to have the future to be able to live in the life purpose that you want and the reason that you're doing all this. So
Thanks
Casey,
for having me on.
yeah, man. Last question though. I always like
Yeah.
to ask people this is, what's something that's unconventional that you do that helps you see results either in your fitness, in your life, in your energy, in your finances? What's something that you do that people will be like, oh, that's interesting?
Well, I'm going to go with my morning routine. I find that others that are close to me come up with weirder things, right? That I don't really recognize that I do. But this is just a routine that I've had every single morning. So I wake up. When I wake up, I meditate for 10 minutes. After I get done meditating, I go to the gym, and then I get back. I get in the steam shower, and I sit there and I meditate in a different way for 10 minutes. And I think this is one of the things that's just, it's really important for me to do. So I'll spend a few minutes just thinking through all the things that I'm grateful for. So it's my gratitude practice, if you will, in that moment. So I think through all the things I'm grateful for. Then I think about who I want to be a hero to that day. So who do you want to be a hero to today? And some people say, well, I want to save the world. Well, you can't. And I'm not sure the world needs saving, but you do have the ability to be a hero to somebody this day. And some days it's my wife, some days it's my kids, some days it's our team, some days it's our clients or our fans. And, I pick that individual for the day, and that's going to be my focus throughout the day. Then I say, all right, well, I want to set my intention for the day around that. So if I want to be a hero to them today, what do I have to do, and how's it going to make me feel at the end of the day? And I just sit there and I kind of feel that end of the day feeling. So at 5:30, I walk away from the office, or 4:30, I walk away from the office. What am I going to feel like? What kind of mindset am I going to have? And then I wrap it up with just some big smiles that I'll hold for a couple minutes, which is definitely an odd practice, I've been told. But I'll just sit there and smile for a couple minutes. I might laugh to myself. My wife thinks I'm absolutely crazy. And then I am off.
That is awesome. Really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for everything on this. Just dropping some wisdom, sharing with us today, Casey. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. We'll talk to you very soon.
Pleasure, Nate. See you soon.